fuck, we're in episode 3 of The Rub. We had a jump off. We had a second episode. I don't know what we call this. A triple threat. I don't know what we want to call this episode, but we're going to call it something eventually because I know we got a couple masterminds here who sit on our panel. We're going to get to them in a second, but just want to let everybody know we got something new that's out there as well. We now have a... What is this thing called? An email address like that we used to use from before, which is basically if you ever want to reach out to us, you have any questions, thoughts, areas that you want us to bring up as topics on the show, you can reach us out at therubwrestling@outlook.com. Please feel free. You got any crazy questions? You want to know more about the panel? You want to know more about WWE, AEW, ROH, NJPW, AAA, anything like that? Please let us know. We're going to be here, but we're going to get ready and fucking kick off this podcast with our illustrious panel. He's the man with the sauce and the most. Chris, quick question for you. AEW video game is going to come out on PS5 and a bunch of other systems. Are you buying it? Yes or no?
Ooh, I don't even know right now. It's been so long. It better be really good. Let's put it that way. But looks like
maybe. Looks like WWE No Mercy, but for PS5, but with all AEW stars. Not gonna lie. So if you haven't watched the trailer, check that shit out. That's not a plug for anything. It's just if you're a video game fan and you love those old school wrestling games, get in it. But other than that, Chris, we're gonna get it going. Josh, what's going on, man? Tell us about what's going on. What's going on with your week?
Not too much, man. Just had some negotiations for work and getting the garden ready. Watching some wrestling too.
What are you growing?
Lots of stuff. Weed. It's much weed. Lots of weed. Lots of vegetables. So, yeah.
It's always awesome being the host and you just put people on the spot with stupid shit. It's great. Let me fucking tell you. But you know what? Coming off a little bit of a lag this week after WrestleMania, the highs are kind of coming in. We're coming into a little bit of a slow season. Doesn't mean that there's any, less news, less topics, less rumors, anything like that. But we're going to kick off our show today. And we're going to start off with, what Razor Ramon used to like to say, that he's the bad guy. And we talk about bad guys and we talk about your typical heels that we see in wrestling. You talk about the NWO, you talk about Hollywood Hogan, The Rock when he was in his prime, Triple H. These are all massive heels. But who would have fucking thunk that the biggest heel in professional wrestling right now, in probably many of our opinion, and we're going to talk about it, is actually who? Dominic Mysterio? Does anybody think that? Like, Chris, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Dom's status as a top heel right now in the wrestling industry, not just in WWE, but in the industry as a whole?
Oh, my boy Dom. Oh, I'm big on him, and on Monday, and that the heat he can draw now is just you have to say he's right up there with MJF. Like I believe was it this Raw? Yeah, they literally booed him for almost a minute straight, and it was loud boos. Like you could hear them talk. So that right there, nuclear heat, that's what you need to be a heel. And I don't know what he's doing, but he's found it. Even his smirks. I've been reading that the water in his sister's face was off the cuff and ad-libbed. He's just doing heel stuff and he's getting away with it. Facial expressions, body language, everything he does in reference to Eddie. Keeping up his jailhouse gimmick. He knows. Like, he almost cracks himself during half these things. He knows what's going on. But he's doing it for me. And with Raw, he's my must see Raw almost right now. I want to see what Dom's gonna do.
Josh, what are your thoughts when you're kicking off Chris? I mean, I'll have my 2 cents when we kind of kick it up. But Josh, what do you really think about Dom? I mean, we weren't, you and I before, we used to talk probably 6-7 months ago, and we hated his segments when he was a face with Rey Mysterio. Like, we literally wanted him off the show. We were talking about that. But with him now, how do you feel about his performance now, let's say over the last 3 months, and how he's done well with the storyline with his dad?
Yeah, so I think that the storyline is really interesting. It definitely is something that plays into reality, but them being father and son, and it invokes a lot of emotion as well. It really plays up to the fan base. The Latin fan base is really invested in this, and I believe the father son role in that culture is really strong, and the things that he's saying and doing are really things that can draw a lot of heat. So I think that it's, it's good heat. And I will say that he did make a mistake at the beginning of his promo there on Monday at the beginning, and it kind of took a little bit of steam out of it for me. But he still gets the heat, and you can tell that the fans are like, "This is just some young punk," and they're really marking out for it, right? Like, and I really enjoy when the fans are really invested in it, and like they're buying into his malarkey, and it's fun. I think it's fun to see the fans react the way they do. Is he, next level like MJF? Definitely not on the mic, but like the amount of heat that he's getting, I think that because of the story and like the dynamics of the relationship between him and his father and Eddie is really playing it up, and I think it's awesome. So it's good to see, because it's much better than watching him wrestle right now. So I think he's improving in the ring, but a lot of work to do there. So
I think you hit it right on the head. I think when you look at his wrestling ability, I think the fact that he's not like this, like as good as his dad or even close at this point, and that he's still kind of green, really plays into the factor that it really ties into kind of that heel persona in a way, because now we just don't hate him because, you know what, he's not a great wrestler. We actually hate him now because he's an asshole and he's a terrible wrestler. So when you look at both those things together, it really plays off. But I absolutely love the fact that how kayfabe this entire thing really went. And I mean, you're kind of looking at it, and I think my highlight for the whole thing that kind of tied this whole thing together was WrestleMania weekend during the Hall of Fame speech. He's sitting there with Rhea Ripley, and at one point they just literally get up and just walk the fuck out of the building. And you know what? A lot of people had a lot of really great things to say about that. Actually, Conan actually said that he just thought it was just like this nice little kind of bow tie that you could put on the entire thing that kind of just added it to make the next night's match more than really what it could have been, because it's just that reality, right? Like we're marks, like all of us are marks in this situation. Like we watch wrestling, we try to find out what's going on, we love rumor mills. That's why we have a show like this. But the fun part is when you can take people that already know that and kind of make them believe that it's real, that's when you really have something special, right? And I think that's just the reality of it, is that it kind of making that believability, like Josh, you said, that realistic, that realism to it, really just kind of makes something in a feud, especially a long 3 to 6 month feud, those 6 or 9 months that we don't really see very much anymore. But now those 3-month feuds really kind of have that that memory and that longevity to it, right? I think nowadays more so than anything in wrestling, it's hard to have something that's really memorable because everybody wants everything so fast. There's so much short-term gratification that I think now WWE is starting to lean towards what we're seeing with Roman and trying to have this like long-term gratification for the fan, because what ultimately that's going to create is that long-term memory, that legendary memory that's never going to go away. And I think that's what they don't have compared to what we've had 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, face it, we've all had those things where, I don't know what it was for you. It might have been Sean screwing Brett. It might have been the formation of the NWO. It might have been something crazy, but we all have that legendary moment that's not going to go anywhere, right? So that's what made this kind of awesome when we went through it.
But when I think about it, where's Dom without Ray?
Exactly. I would have to agree. Dom is nowhere without Ray, right?
So I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, Ray being inducted to the Hall of Fame as an active performer, I think the writing's on the wall of what's going on there. So when the inevitable happens and Ray's out of there pretty soon, I mean, who do we match Dom up with? Can he hack it, or is the strength of that storyline going to kind of one-hit wonder him?
I think it could, but I think like when you look at his strengths, I think Dom can carry it. I mean, Josh, what do you think? Do you think Dom can carry it without Ray right now? I think maybe not, but I think down the line, I think he could.
I think that this storyline is Ray's, like, obviously this is Ray's final goodbye, and I think that he's going to do what he wants to do with it and give his son that moment where he retires him. And, it's going to be, I feel like it's going to end in a retirement match. And then, maybe if the LWO is still around, that, Dominic either feuds with them or pairs with them eventually. It could be, also that Dominic turns face at some point. I think that his wrestling is going to have to improve considerably, or he's going to have to, really just remain a heel and find his niche there and be that bad guy. But I don't think that he can turn and be a face without his dad or without some severe improvement in his wrestling ability.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is time's going to tell with that when we look at that, and I think a lot of it is going to have to do, and the future is going to be fun to watch. I mean, it's going to give us a reason to watch on Monday nights, and hopefully it leads into a couple programs into pay-per-views that end up being really good. Now, Chris, this one's going to have a big smile on your face. We heard the big news this week. Your boy Logan Paul got a contract extension. So I'm not even going to start with you. Josh, what do you think Logan Paul's future is with the WWE? We looked at his ability. We look at everything that we see. What do you think Logan Paul's future is with the WWE? Is he a future heavyweight champion, or is he just a sideshow attraction?
Well,
be honest here, eh? Don't like make stuff up that he's bad.
No, I'm not gonna. You know what? To be honest, I'm not gonna make anything up. And I appreciate you letting me go first. I know that Chris is a big fan of Logan Paul. I actually like him in the WWE. I think that part of the problem that I have with Logan Paul's being in the WWE is that like his temporariness, and that he's having these big matches, and that it's not like this the story. It's hard to buy into the story, and then at the same time, because he's playing himself, it's hard because it seems like he doesn't want to be heel, but at the same time he's a natural heel because people don't like him as much as he wants them to like him. But you can't deny his athletic ability. I don't think that you should put the heavyweight strap on him right away. I think if anything, you give him something like the Intercontinental belt, or put him in a tag team where they get the tag belts, and get him something. But I definitely think that he's going to he should have a belt on him at some point, because he's got too much star power to not give him that opportunity. But it's really hard if he's not going to be participating in house shows or like regular Monday nights, to put a serious belt on him, because he needs to be present for stuff like that.
Oh, now moment of truth, Chris. What are your thoughts?
I'm not the fan of Logan Paul necessarily, but in the wrestling ring, I think he's great. Like he's got the look, he's got the charisma, he's bringing in a following that nobody, like, it's only The Rock can rival in terms of wrestling, as far as I know. Of course, no research there, but yeah, and I don't know. He knows it seems he's working with them quite a bit. He's hasn't leaked anything. He's had surprise returns. He's had injuries. He's come back. He gives me the feeling that he knows how to do business in the term of wrestling business. So seems like if he's going to play ball like this and he's going to do business, I think he's got a place there. What we'll see is how much of a team player I think he's going to be, like in the locker room, like coming up and being pushed to the sky like that without knowing anything about really the business. That'll be interesting to see. Apparently, from what I heard, though, he's not what I heard. What I read, he's not too bad in the locker room. Other main thing with me is the schedule. Is he gonna do? I mean, he's got his stuff. He does his stuff. So time's gonna be taken away. But it's gonna be interesting to see if he takes a little bit more time and shows up a little bit more often. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Anytime I can see good wrestling, I'm happy. So yeah, I'm happy about it. Logan Paul Mafia.
What do you think about his image? Was it photoshopped?
Yeah, 100%.
Of course it was. I think you look at Logan Paul, I think he's a businessman at the end of the day. And I think you look at his in-ring ability, his physicality, he can do all the stuff. And he's wrestled right now a couple really big names in Seth Rollins and The Miz. And has performed admirably. I mean, he's can perform
Roman
things
Reigns.
that, Roman Reigns as well. Sorry, I even forgot about that. But you look at, even we were talking about the joke of the buckshot lariat and him being able to do that. It's something that takes a lot of skill and athleticism to do, especially for somebody that's maybe not as done it as much as Adam Page has done it. But he has this ability, this kinesthesia or body awareness to be able to pull off these moves. And I'm in the same boat. I'd love to see if he would just take 1 year and dedicate himself to it, to see how good he would be after 1 year. We might not be able to see that. I mean, obviously, I'm in an industry that monitors Prime sales, and I can tell you right now that the Prime sales that are going on in my business are crazy. He's not going anywhere with that company, because that company's like could be $1 billion company, right? Especially with you know, an energy drink and stuff coming in at some point. So he's got a lot on the go, but it'll be really interesting to see if he's going to be able to pick up that first year and to kind of go. And the one thing for me on the contract is he's obviously getting paid. And we know wins and losses kind of happen. What happens if he keeps losing? Is he going to keep want to do it if he's going to keep on losing matches? I think there's got to hit a point where he's got to win some, and he's got to get a clean win over somebody that's really going to kind of solidify him as a not just a standout, like kind of a standout performer, but as somebody that's more believable as a wrestling persona and as a winner. So I think time will tell with Logan Paul, but I think we can all agree we're looking forward to getting him back in the ring at some point after he gets better. So, all right. So a little bit, we're going to switch a little bit from WWE to AEW, and you know what we saw based on. I know we're a little bit behind with kind of our podcast, but one thing that we always have our eye on is we love tag team wrestling. This podcast is big on tag team wrestling. Let's talk about Fuck the Revival, FTR. You know, they come off a big win with the Guns. They win the belts in a match where we didn't know if they were going to retire or they were going to re-sign their contracts. There was a little bit of reality there where we didn't know if they were going to stay with the company or they were going to go somewhere else. Couple near falls, couple of heart attacks. At the end, they eventually win it. And now we know that they're going to be staying with AEW, and what we've been hearing, it's basically on a 4-year contract. The cool part is with the situation and obviously it being a work all the way through, and we know that it's a work all the way through. What are your feelings on FTR staying in AEW? Do you feel it's the right decision for them? And who do you think they should fight next for the titles? Chris, give it a go.
Do we know it was all work though? I mean, like what if we kind of had a situation where, you know, they were kind of the same way leaning towards WWE. Vince came back and now they're staying with AEW rather than do that.
From what they're selling it as, it sounds like they said they were never thinking about going to WWE. At least that's what Cash and Dax had said. I mean, but it seems like it's all work.
I don't think you can switch. You know what? The reason I think it's a work all the way through is that I don't think you make a decision like that on like saying, okay, I'm going to go to WWE, and then something happens and say, oh, Tony, can I have that 4-year contract back? Like, I don't think that business works that way. So I personally believe that they were going to stay all the way through. And I've said it all the way through. I think with you know, Dax and his family and, you know, him being able to see his family, I don't think that WWE schedule would have let him see his family very much. So it's either kind of make the money and don't see your family, or your kid grow up for the next 5 years, or stay in a place where you can have some travel and go through, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking about that. You know, I absolutely love that they won the title. I love FTR, like you said. We're pretty high on tag team wrestling. Josh is wearing a Acclaim shirt right now. Yeah, but will they actually retire in 4 years as well? I think they might have more than 4 years in them, but I don't know. You know, unlike Ric Flair, these guys are saying it and they've accomplished a lot, so I kind of tend to believe them. So that's there as well. But yeah, who would they wrestle next? I mean, the Acclaimed is kind of, I don't know. They put over the Guns, and then the Guns got to run with it. And we haven't seen much of the Acclaimed recently, so maybe for them to have another comeback at the top of the tag team division. I'd like to see that. They could run a program for a little while.
Cool. Josh, what are your thoughts? I know you're big. You and me are really big. I think all of us are pretty big on FTR, but I'm sure you're happy with their re-signing. Where do you think they go from here? And what do you think the next 4 years are going to look like for them in AEW?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I definitely think that the schedule is the reason why they stayed, and that they like to be able to travel wherever they kind of want to do the different promotions, and then have the Acclaim and have those super, you know, big matches, that like the dream matches that you wouldn't get to have in WWE. WWE's tag division's pretty soft, and I think that they're just having a lot of fun. And, you know, with the uncertainty going on in WWE, I think that everybody kind of knew that, like, even though Vince left for a little bit, like, he's never leaving until he dies, right? So like, it's something that but where they're going, I don't know. I don't really know who's left for them to go through. I could see that, you almost their faces right now, so it'd be weird to have them go through like do a segment with the Acclaimed as them being faces too. Not saying that they can't do a match with the Acclaimed, but I feel like someone's gonna have a turn then if they're gonna do that. Maybe they could do um you know, I'm not sure with Penta and Ray or something like that. I think that they could pretty much throw any of those tag teams together, and they're going to have a great match. So I feel like really they have the bonus of creating any type of story that they want. It sounds like they're going to be playing out the CM Punk FTR um, with the Elite, but who knows? Maybe that could all be just a rumor as well. So who knows? It is a rumor, I guess.
You know what? I'm a big fan like you. I think I'd love to see them go against Penta and Ray again. I thought that was an amazing match, and I think for tag team wrestling in AEW, I don't think you can name a match. Maybe that wasn't just FTR versus the Bucks that didn't have Penta and Ray Phoenix in it. I think one of the things I'd love to see eventually is that if, you know what, we're going to talk about CM Punk in a second. But when we look at kind of FTR's reign and we look at them as tag team wrestling, I think the one thing that they don't really have is that trios championship. And I think that's something that you'd like to see, maybe not right away. Like if I was trying to book FTR from now to the end of the year, I definitely want them to have the titles now until at least London. Like, I'd want them to have a nice long, like, probably a 5 or 6 month reign, and then try to maybe move them into, like, a trios thing if that's the way that it's going to go. Because there's not just Punk that they can use for trios, but I think they would have to have a connection or something with a member. CM Punk just happens to be the person that they can connect with the most when they look at those things. But I think when you kind of go through...
Briscoe.
Sorry? Yeah, Briscoe's another one that you can actually do it with, and it actually brings him in the mix as well, right? So there's a lot of, like, little kind of cool, unique things, and I think they're going to live up to their name of being like that top end, that top tier tag team on the planet. And if they decide to leave after 4 years, that's great. But for them, for where they want to be after the 4 years, they better have like probably the most solid 4 years just to kind of solidify whatever it is. Your one run with 5 belts is not going to solidify you as the greatest tag team of all time. It's your matches that are going to do that, right? So they have to have some really solid matches. They're going to have to get into some gimmicky matches, and they're going to have to put their bodies on the line for the next 4 years to really be where they want to be. Do I think they're the greatest tag team of all time? No. I think they're in my top 5, but I don't think they're at the top of my list, but yet. So, but I think they could be at the end of it. So, we're talking about FTR. We've heard a name in there that we haven't heard of in a long time. People that kind of, when everything went down, people kind of he went from hero to GOAT, and to GOAT, I don't mean greatest of all time. I mean literal GOAT with horns. We're talking about CM Punk, right? And I think when we look at CM Punk, there's a lot of news that are starting to come through and rumors that are coming through that, hey, maybe this relationship behind the scenes with the EVPs, with Tony, with some of the other wrestlers that were really spoiled, are starting to kind of work back together like they're trying to bring him in. Now, we all know Punk is brought in as a money draw, and he is a money draw. It's proven. There's facts behind it. You can go and look. Tony's has facts, plenty of facts on CM Punk being a main event money draw. Now, my question is, based on these rumors, what do you think's going to happen? There's a couple things here. What do you want to happen? What do you think's going to happen? Is it good for is it good for AEW in the long run? Josh, what are your thoughts about CM Punk coming back? Do you think it's worth it for the company? And do you think that it's gonna mean that big time ratings and a big time draw for them if he comes back?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think that, I mean, a part of me all thinks that almost all of it is a work, like from the beginning, coming out of the ring with Mox saying, I'm so hurt that, we've got to create something that's going to create a storyline that's going to last long. Obviously, that's not true. But I I think that it's clear that he's going to come back. I think that Tony's invested in this guy, and he's producing the numbers that he wants, and he's getting those clicks. And the story is if it's true, then the reality is what's drawing people to the story as well. And I think that for if all the members of the elite are re-signed and they're going to stay long term, I think that it would make so much sense for them to feud with Punk, just because the amount of money they could all make on that feud would be good for everybody. Now, is it going to be good for AEW? That's going to depend on if Punk continues to go into business for himself, and if he's really going into business for himself, or if it's just a storyline. But if he's going into business for himself like he is, he's going to just ruin it for himself in the long run. Like, it's going to be over before he knows it. He's been injured twice since he's been back. The matches in AEW are a lot different than they are in WWE, and he's a lot older than he was when he was in WWE. So, how many more dream matches does he have left before he injures himself for another year? And then, is he just going to keep on going into business for himself and burying guys who are coming up? So I'm not sure.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, one of the things Josh said there is that he's injury prone. And for a lot of stuff, I know you're going to have your thoughts on the whole situation. But I think injuries definitely play a factor in what's going on. But what are your thoughts of CM Punk coming back in? And is it good for business?
I mean, I agree with Josh. He is the big money draw, or I agree with you. Sorry, and yeah, he brings the money in. I mean, anytime he's proven that, there's nothing to say against it. Saying he's willing to work with either the Bucks, they're willing to work with him is what I'm reading. I also saw something today about again, it doesn't mean I believe these rumors. I just you read it and there's some possible, so you look into it. The other thing I was reading is that he's been trying to reach out to the Bucks and to Kenny and to Jericho to try to work on creative moving forward. So, I mean, there's so much real that you could actually put into this now, like with the heat that's been on Twitter, the fight that actually happened. I mean, there's some big money to be made here, and if the Bucks and Kenny are being sour grapes and don't want it, then I mean, that's just a terrible idea. So you'd imagine they'd work past that for the payday they're gonna get.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think in this situation you have to definitely do what's good for business. I think my two concerns with Punk are kind of what Josh said. I don't know if I'd say business going in for yourself, but definitely not thinking not being arrogant to the point that you're thinking that you're the world's greatest wrestler after being gone for 7 years. I think, what? One of the things that I love, and I've mentioned this before, and some people don't like them, are those press conferences, but there's a lot of stuff that you get out of the press conference. In the press conference on the night of the fight, he was arrogant for probably the first 5 minutes all the way through. He was getting mad at press members. He was getting mad at people in the back. And then eventually the fight happened right after that, right? So I think when you're looking into that, it's about, trying to tread carefully. You have a lot of, I don't want to say big egos, but you have superstars in the back that are probably the greatest in the world, and they all want to be on the top. And, I'm not going to say like they have like they're egotistical to the point, but they all want to be the best. And when you're going out there and, you know what, maybe you haven't put your body on the line as much as you have in the past few years, and they have, and people could take offense to that. I think the second part, as we mentioned, is injury prone. I think injuries can be really bad for long-term storylines, like really bad. And I think if somebody is injury prone, you're going to have to make sure that he has the time off, that he's not going to be wrestling every single night. And maybe that's going to be for a while where he doesn't have the title. And, and I don't necessarily think he needs it. Maybe the fans want it. And if the fans want it, the fans will probably get it. But I don't think he needs it. I think at the end of the day, he can just show up as CM Punk, talk his shit and really have a good spot on the card and be where he wants to be on the card and fighting. But I agree with you. There's probably dump trucks full of money that they're willing to drop at each of these people's houses once this thing goes off. And if this goes off in a big venue, like potentially what we're going to talk about later, at something like Wembley Stadium with 100,000 people, or at one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year, I think you're going to start seeing some massive things. You're going to see merchandise sales. You're going to see your buy rates, everything that are going to come from it. And I think the AEW has more to gain from having CM Punk in their lineup than more to lose. There's just more to gain with CM Punk there. So I think in the long-term interest of everybody, it's probably a good idea to mend the fences. And from what the rumors are saying, hopefully that will come to fruition at some point, because I am just so anxious to see what the fans do when he comes through the curtain for the first time. I think they're going to boo the ever-loving shit out of him. It's going to be great.
Depends if it's in Chicago or not.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think if you're gonna hope to get him, a face run, you better book him in Chicago. So
I mean, if MJF can get the cheers that he gets going into Long Island, if they want CM Punk to get those cheers, they'll just start him in Chicago.
well, I mean, Chris Canio gets a hero's welcome in Sudbury, Ontario. So I mean, you gotta get to just no laugh there. Okay. Anywho,
I'll edit that out.
That's the Price is Right losing song. All right, we talked about Wembley. Talked about big things that could happen at Wembley. If you were booking at Wembley, what are some matches that you'd really like to see? I mean, we're talking again 100,000 seat stadium. Rumors about Wembley already is that they've had an allocation where they've bought about 45,000 seats, and that is after 2 weeks of an announcement, which is pretty damn good. So when you're looking at 45,000 seats after 2 weeks, I think you guys are probably going to be looking at a potential sellout of Wembley in London when it happens, especially even if they had to give away 10,000 tickets. I think you're going to look at it, you're going to probably have a sellout there. If you're picking your headline matches or a couple sets of matches, what's going to be your match to go to? I know we talked, I think we're all going to agree on the same one, but Chris, your headline match of Wembley, if it happened tomorrow, what would it be?
It'd be Punk and Omega. Yeah, I think that's what we're all going to agree on. Yeah, it's such big money. Even if Punk just comes and promos all the way to Wembley with Kenny, then I mean it's money. It's pure money. But is MJF going to still be champ then? Running those two again, is that something, or is MJF in it with the four pillars now and Darby? So it's hard to kind of Kenny and Punk are my first choice, but yeah, that's the money fight for me.
Josh, what do you think your money fight is going into the summer? I think if you had to pick anything, you can pick anything you want. You can say Punk and Omega too if you want to do that, but if there's anything else that you'd see, what would you like to see as the main event of Wembley that would really kind of rip the roof off that 100,000 seat stadium?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main event is kind of not irrelevant with AEW, because they're going to run such a long event that, you're going to have a bunch of matches that are going to be potential main events. I think that, it could be Kenny and Punk. It could be FTR and Punk and the Elite. That could be a headline as well. I think that there's a chance that, the MJF Four Pillars match could be that, he goes through the three other pillars and he cheats his way through it. They all complain and they do a four-way match for the championship at Wembley. You lead up to it, because every time he seems to be having a match with somebody who's a pillar or something that's going on, it's not just like Darby Allin that's watching. It's Darby Allin, it's Jack Perry, it's Sammy Guevara. So it's like they're all paying attention. So it's very clear that they're all part of this story. And is that going to mean that, they just interfere with the next match? Or is it just that, MJF's going to, do the storyline where he's running through the pillars and something happens later? I don't know. It's, for me, I could see them putting the strap on Jungle Boy at some point as well. So that could be part of the storyline going into Wembley. Chris's door just fell down.
Damn animals! Holy jeez, they're going nuts.
I think it's interesting how big Wembley is, though. Like this is going to be a statement for them, because if they can do 90,000 people at Wembley, then it's going to be a big sign to WWE that WWE clearly has the bigger market, but to go to Europe, sell 90,000 seats, there's not too many wrestling promotions that have done that. And I think that's could be a big wake up call for WWE.
Yeah, I don't think any other one has done that. I think when you look at it too, I think the Khans, or especially Tony Khan, has a lot of roots to England, right? Like, so basically they own Fulham in the Premier League, and so they already know what it's like to have like 40,000 people at Craven Cottage, and they can imagine, based in a lot of cases, I'm sure Tony's been to Wembley and has seen the size of Wembley when you go there, and I can't for a second think that he would go into Wembley without even having close to a sellout. There's just no way that would happen. Whatever happens, there could be 60,000 people. They're going to announce that there's 90,000 people there. I really don't care, but I think he is going to sell it out.
I agree.
And I think it is tough. I think when we kind of the question that we have here is tough, because you're trying to look into 5 months of booking, and right now you're trying to think of a roster And you know what? You got a bunch of roster guys in, you know, the Blackpool Combat Club that are kind of high up on the card, but they're kind of stuck in together as well. So, you know, I would love to see like for me, I'd love to see, maybe not as the main event, but I'd love to see MJF kind of duck these 4 pillars, because I fucking hate Sammy Guevara. I don't believe Darby Allin can be a world heavyweight champion. And you know what? The only one there that has a shot at it, in my opinion, is Jack Perry. So personally, for me, the 4 pillars match and all this crap with the 4 pillars doesn't mean anything. Sammy Guevara thinks he's the world's greatest wrestler. He is a fucking pile of dog shit, in my opinion. I am fucking hate Sammy Guevara. He's fucking useless. Unless there's a ladder and something where he's jumping off 15 feet, that's the only thing I want to see. And not to say that I want him to die at any point, but I'd like to see him get severely injured. Just because of his fucking mouth. Sorry,
the matter of time
I don't want to be personal
hurt.
about it, but I mean, as a podcast and just as a person that watches wrestling, Josh in this case usually says to me, Chris, he usually goes, "Well, I guess he's doing his job then." so maybe he is doing his job, but
clearly,
I'm just for me, for Sammy Guevara, I think he's extremely talented. I just don't see him as a world champion. I've never seen him as entertaining to me as like when he takes a mic. I've never find him entertaining on a mic ever. Him making out with his girlfriend makes me want to puke. And that's just the reality of it. But I think I'd really like to see MJF in a match where it's actually believable. I'd love to see him maybe fight Danielson again. I really enjoyed the Iron Man match. Thought it was great. I'd like to maybe see how it would go with Mox, where Mox maybe beats the living crap out of him for 20 minutes and he bleeds all over the place. Like, you know, MJF is the modern day Roddy Piper. That's what he is. He riles everybody up. He's going to bleed. He's going to get into a fight, and he's going to try to weasel his way into winning, and that's great. What I'd like to see for the main event is, you know, I'd like to see Kenny and the Bucks together in the main event. I don't know how you do that. I think you're going to lean towards CM Punk and FTR. But you know what? Maybe it's something different. Maybe it's CM Punk and maybe some other people that we're not aware of at that point that could potentially come into that spot. But it'll be interesting to see on how it really plays out. I mean, there's also the kind of lingering situation with Hangman that kind of plays into this kind of elite situation that's kind of happening too, that maybe there's a storyline for that we're not aware of. But yeah.
Hey Matt, you said there was never they didn't, this would be like the first time someone else put on a show that's bigger than the WWE, but we forgot about North Korea.
Oh yeah, we did. We actually did forget about
WCW.
WCW.
That's the biggest show of all time.
Yes, it is. What
there
was
were
it?
a bunch of slaves watching it, but you know.
What was it? 140,000?
I think they had like 200,000 in 2 days or something like that. It was something
insane.
stupid. Over 200,000 in 2 days.
Wow. Yeah, all to see Antonio Inoki, eh? So that's fucking mental.
Well, they had to go. It wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't sell any seats. They just had the seats, and if they were empty, they would have all died.
Oh jeez.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Wembley's going to be interesting. I think the pay-per-view and everything is going to be nuts for it when they do it. I think they'll even rake in maybe and try and get another $10 out of us, which I'll still pay, and that's fine. But I think at the end of it, I think it's going to be a good go. So yeah, time will tell for sure.
It's going to be a rough start though, because it's going to be a day show, I think, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think like you're going to be looking at it, and it's going to be you're going to be 5 hours behind. So what's going to either happen is they're either going to have to go really late into the night, which kind of what they do for boxing. So in a lot of boxing fights that are at like Wembley, sometimes they'll go early, but sometimes they'll actually go late and they'll fight till like 2 a.m. But in a lot of cases, if they are going to do it, the start time will probably be around 2 o'clock in the afternoon for us.
Yeah, that's fine. Their shows run for 12 hours anyways.
Yeah,
They've got to have everybody in the match.
So they'll be done by 8 o'clock, and we'll have an early night for a change before we get to go to work on Monday. So go team. Other than that, that's pretty much it for rumors. What we're going to kind of go through right now is we obviously Raw and Dynamite happened. We're shooting here on a Friday. We're going to be shooting before SmackDown occurs tonight. So basically, Chris, what were your thoughts on your main thoughts, maybe top 3 things that you saw from Raw and Dynamite that you thought were amazing or that you thought were shitty? Either or.
Yeah, Switchblade. That was, that was cool to see. I think he definitely made the right decision. So, when I see something like that, he did the right thing. He's gonna get a lot more out of this than he would have gotten in WWE for sure. Although in WWE he'd be probably pushed really hard to begin, and then Vince wouldn't get him, so it would just be future endeavored by Endeavor.
Oh man, can you imagine him in WWE and Vince would have to get him to put 50 pounds of muscle on just to be like, and Jay, don't get me wrong, Jay White's got a great physique, right? Like he's in great shape. So that's the first one. What else? Jay White. What else we got?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I didn't pay much attention this week. Don't ask me why. I guess with baseball going on, my mind drifted a little bit, but I stayed on the rumors, but didn't stay as much on the live stuff. Raw.
And for those that are listening to this podcast and you guys are diehard, if you've never heard of that actually happens. I mean, we all do the same thing and we kind of stay in, so no problem there. But yeah, baseball did start, and cheers to Fantasy League.
Yeah, we're all three of us are in one of the same leagues. Yeah. Let's see. The Bucks coming back. I watched Being the Elite. It was a decent episode. Kind of funny to hear Cutler sing that sad song, and how him and Naka were going out to the slaughter. So that was neat, and you saw them. The Bucks take off their gear and then kind of just walk out of their house. And then so I thought it was coming, so that was good to see. So and the crowd, the crowd was there for them. The crowd popped. So I mean, a lot of people don't like them, but they're good. They're good at what they do. They get you to, the fans are on their side. So all those people give them such a hard time. I mean, can kind of lay off them a little bit. I like seeing the Bucks back whenever they're back. I like watching them wrestle. They make me laugh. Raw did anything? Was it this week this week Dom got the nuclear heat, eh?
Yeah. Well, it was both weeks. The last 2 weeks he's gotten it, but yeah, this week he got it good too.
So yeah, that stood out to me the most out of everything. I mean, I'm waiting for Cody to have his hard times moment, but I still don't see it. He's putting his heart out there. Something's missing for me to I feel like he's got a hard times in there, but it just hasn't come yet. But yeah, for Raw, I would have to say Dom's nuclear heat just blew me away. I'm like, this, wow, these people actually hate him. They know, like the marks. Well, we're all marks, like you said, but the more you hate him, the more you're gonna see him. So I mean,
for sure.
Oh, I just love it.
Josh, your 3 moments. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Dynamite definitely outshone Raw. I think Raw, it seemed like clearly a lot of issues with Raw, with people with travel issues. Stories were changing, and clearly Vince was changing things as he goes. The Becky Lynch Trish Stratus turn. I felt like I kind of read a week ago or so that was going to happen already. I feel like the story happened too quickly. They didn't let that go very long, and not to say Trish Stratus is impressive, but the ring rust is clear. I just don't know what they're going to do with Lita. Regardless, that's fine. I think that Becky Lynch is a star, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It was just a few sloppy matches I found in Raw. And Raw for me is never really about the matches. A lot of the times, it doesn't seem like a lot of the stuff that's going on is they don't put on. Not to say that they don't put on a lot of great matches, but there's a lot of like B and C quality matches where compared to AEW, the AEW matches, I always enjoy watching AEW because the matches are always just that much better. But you can see why. No, there's no wonder why their wrestlers seem to be injured every other day or every other week. I was quite the Darby Allin match. It was a great match. Darby Allin, he just basically doesn't care about his body. But I agree with you, Matt. I don't see him with the heavyweight championship. I mean, he's barely a flyweight, so I don't see how you put a heavyweight championship on him for any length of time. Sting kind of his controversial promo, not controversial promo, but he gave shout outs to Kevin Nash and Ric Flair. And then I kind of saw an interview with Kevin Nash, and they were asking him if he would ever go to AEW, and I guess he's got some heat with WWE. I'm not really sure, but he's basically said, if like they would fly me out and pay him, then probably do anything at this point. So who knows? Maybe we'll see Kevin Nash at some AEW eventually. It's definitely interesting when you see AEW do, cut promos and talk about Cody and talk about like people in WWE. Obviously, WWE doesn't do that because they don't need to. So it's an easy pop for the fans. I'm always impressed with Powerhouse Hobbs, even though he had a shitty squad. Like it wasn't the shitty match, but it was exactly what it needed to be. And I really like that they're still using QT Marshall, because he gets quite a bit of heat, and I really like the heat that he gets, even you know, um, and you can't complain about a match with Orange Cassidy and Orange Cassidy and Buddy Matthews in it. That was a really great match. I still feel like they're setting up Orange Cassidy to turn on the best friends though, because it seems like they kind of have him, and Trent Beretta was like, oh, his hand is fine, and it's like it's almost like they're setting up for Orange Cassidy to say like enough is enough, and maybe get rid of that character, not get rid of the character, but turn heel. It's just so hard to turn him heel.
Hey, Shawn Michaels got rid of Marty Jannetty. So that's kind of how the way you got to look at it. I think with Orange Cassidy, I think he's on the rise. Best friends. Chuck Taylor's been on the downswing for a while. I think if AEW was around 7 or 8 years when Chuck Taylor was in his prime, I think like he would have been unbelievable. But now he just kind of doesn't bring it, which is kind of one of those things. But yeah, those are some really, really good points. I mean, I'm a big fan of Powerhouse as well. I think when he goes through, he does a really, really good job. I'm very surprised none of you talked about Omos for the first time during this week. I just thought I'd let you know there's a very interesting fact that I saw that came through Reddit, where actually Omos is actually a commissioned artist. So if you actually wanted to get a piece of Omos art, you can, and he draws a lot of anime, Chris, so Naruto and all this other stuff. So found that out the other day, and there's actually a picture that he drew that's either I think on Instagram or Twitter.
I saw your post.
So, and it's actually signed. Yeah, so pretty neat. Yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of the Bucks coming back this week. I thought it was really well done. I mean, I don't know what I thought about Kenny Omega trying to pull a John Moxley, but coming out in like $300 designer jeans just really kind of seemed off for me when that happened. I think I hope that was planned and not just kind of thrown together. But I think there's a lot of stuff like Dom's heat is always great. What I'm really interested on WWE right now is really about potentially the breakup of Damage Control, and seeing potentially a match that's going to have with the draft that's going to set up Io Sky versus Asuka. And I just want to see that more than anything, because I think they're going to fucking kill each other. It's going to be amazing. So that's something really big that I'm looking forward to. I really liked how they were kind of getting ready to turn on Bayley. Bayley tried to set up about her getting the title shot, and then said, oh, okay, well, you can go in and talk to Adam Pearce. And I think you're going to see them probably split during the draft. But I think right now, because of the draft, this is usually kind of that lull period. But yeah, Chris, I'm with you, man. We're waiting to see Cody to have his hard time moments, and having that, like, my hand's reaching through the screen, and all you got to do is just reach out my hand because it's hard times, baby. We need to see something like that moving forward, and at least going into SummerSlam, I think. Like I said, it's if you've been a wrestling fan for a few years, you know that basically after WrestleMania, there's always this little lull, but when you go through, hopefully the storylines will pick up. Hopefully the draft will go through. I think I'm really looking forward to see where people end up. Hopefully I don't know how the draft works with the Undisputed title. I know Roman's majoritively on SmackDown, but it'd be nice to see him on Raw much more. It'll be interesting. I think the storylines will be set up for the summer once the draft hits, which will be great. So, but other than that, is there anything else or any fun facts that you guys want to add before we end the show?
I want to say something that's going to be controversial, because I like John Moxley, but if anybody's ever seen him do his stomps when he's holding the guy by the arms, they're the weakest stomps I've ever seen. You just take a look at his last match, weakest stomps. They just don't look as good, and John Moxley's so good. And when I watch him do his stomps, it's the only thing, and I'm like, I don't understand how you could stick a fork in someone's face as hard as you can, and then have a couple half stomps that look like you're barely touching them. So, anyways, that's
That's Josh's. That's what really grinds his gears.
Josh had to get that off his chest.
I was
today.
just about to.
He's been
It was
holding that in for
I
a
had
bit.
one more comment about AEW, and then Matt jumped in. So that was the one thing that I had.
Sorry.
John Moxley's face was right on my screen on the other side of it. It was like when him and Claudio were doing at the end of the match when they were doing it. It was just, and this is like the second or third time that I noticed it. And like I said, I love John Moxley. He's great. He's hardcore. It's just that like something that's supposed to be looking so destructive. It looks like he's just like giving him a little love tap, like almost like he's doing the Orange Cassidy.
Orange Cassidy, but they're supposed to be face stomps. Beautiful.
Yes, exactly.
Chris, anything you want to add before we sign off?
Yeah, send us an email. Get a hold of us through Facebook Messenger if you want. Yeah, like you said at the start, we have that if you want to give us some ideas for some topics. If you are an independent wrestler and want to maybe someday be interviewed, who knows?
Yeah, lots of cool stuff there. Like Chris said, we're available now on anywhere you can find a podcast, basically. So Google, Apple, Spotify, whatever. We have an email address. We have a Discord group that we have that's mostly just for us, but hopefully one day it'll expand. But, we'll get there at that point. We'll have some crazy memes and all that stuff in there. But you know what? I think it was a pretty successful show number 3. I think we're kind of getting a little more ease here with the technology and stuff. Chris is doing an amazing job with editing. And yeah, so we're going to watch some SmackDown tonight, see what's going on, and then we'll compile up for next week, and we'll have some more topics so that we can create you the best wrestling content on the internet.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But anyways, for everybody out there, depending on what part of the world that you're in, good morning, good afternoon, good night. I bid you adieu. Thank you for listening, and kudos. Have a great evening. Take care, everybody.